Good evening, everyone. Wait for a few people to obviously get in, and then we're going to our chats and get our guests on for tonight. On Thursday, we've got a special again, and I'll announce who that person is later on. I'm quite excited to get this person. He's been on before, but back on Thursday night. But it was an inspirational story before, and I'm sure it will be again. Just wait for a few other people to come in, and then we'll start our chats with our guests tonight. If you have any questions, please obviously ask them throughout the night, and our guests will hopefully answer them, or if there's any for myself as well, I'll try to answer them the best I can. So, yeah, as I say, let me have a look if people are here. Let's have a look. So, I'll get my first guest on.
Hello, mate.
You alright, mate? You good?
Yeah, not bad, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. So, for the people what are in here, and also obviously the ones what watch it back, just introduce yourself and how we know each other and that.
I am Paul Rafferty. I met Jamie through working with Jamie with England 65. I was the photographer for England and for International Soccer Fed in the World Cup this year.
So, just touching obviously on that, how was your experience obviously going to the World Cup and doing all the photos for the World Cup?
Yeah, it's a bit surreal, really. It was a bit of an opportunity that would come out of the blue. Obviously, I spoke to yourself about doing some stuff for you and for the England lads, and then from there, it sort of escalated into photographing the whole thing, which was quite surreal, really.
Mm.
A great opportunity, like excellent opportunity to not only obviously be a photographer in an international tournament, but to meet some of the people I did, to have the opportunity I did was pretty surreal, and it came out of the blue, really.
Yeah, I think you're going to touch on obviously later on how photography has helped you and focus and stuff like that. But first question, obviously, what is mental health obviously to you in general? What do your thoughts on mental health?
Um, I'm quite open with mental health, really, because probably this time 3 4 years ago I was very very naive to mental health and how it affected people and just what it did really and what it was, until really my own experience of it, and then it sort of, I was very naive to think that people, it wasn't a thing, and I'm quite honest about that, and to say to, and that's quite very very naive of me to say that, but having my own experiences of it probably 2 years ago now, yeah, it opened a whole new world for me, really, and understanding what it was and how people deal with it and how best to deal with it, and ultimately how some people don't deal with it as well. So
Mm.
yeah, it's such a powerful thing now, and it's so common now, really, isn't it? And we talk about a stigma all the time of mental health,
Mm.
and let's be honest, that even now that we're talking about it more, not enough people talk about it. So yeah, so I'm quite open about mental health now, and but I'm quite honest to say that 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that I didn't believe in it, to be honest.
Mm. I think when we've spoken to obviously a lot of guests, do you feel as we're a few of us are a little bit older from the old school, that that didn't really come out and we just had to brave it through, you know what I mean? And we didn't speak as
Absolutely.
much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was. It well, even now, like it's such a thing that people don't talk about it, and when they should, really, it's like you said. Like back, I'm only 33. Do you know what I mean? But
Mm.
people who are slightly like older, and me and yourself, they just don't talk about it. Didn't talk about it. Still don't talk about it, and should really. It's quite, it's such a powerful emotion what can affect people's life so like largely, it needs to be spoken about, but you're bang on there, really, by saying that people didn't talk about it, and because of that stigma and so on.
Mm. I touched on it with a lot of the guests, obviously, and a male. like when we're talking about football, obviously, from my background, or obviously through your background and stuff like that, and most of the guests, a lot of them turned around and said that they felt they didn't know how to say it to, say, a dressing room, or even people what are really close to them. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the lad humour, the lad banter, the lad environment where obviously it's not only guys that deal with it, obviously it's females as well, but to be in that environment where it is very macho, very laddie and stuff, I don't think people will find it easy to talk in that environment. I was very lucky that at the time I was with my wife who I'd been with for 8 years, and I managed to talk about it to her. But being really honest, putting myself in a different position, if I was in a changing room, I don't think I would have spoke about it. So I
Mm.
just think it's so hard for guys as well to cut in them environments which are very macho and win at all cost and so on, that who wants to talk about it to them sort of guys.
Obviously, it's a big thing at the moment. Obviously, with mental health and the struggles what a lot of people are going through. Obviously, at the moment with the lockdown and everything like that. Um, how do you feel people can get through that?
Again, it's got to be communication, isn't it? It's got to be. I'm very lucky that I'm still working, and a lot of people are, and who I know who deal with that. But people who are not working, who do have mental health issues, it's or might not know they have mental health issues. It's got to be communication. It's got to be hoping that you've got a friend there or a family member what does ask, because it's sometimes it's the hardest thing to bring up.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's got to be conversation. Even from as simple as doing things like this. Obviously, my Instagram, seeing me talk about it, which obviously I don't do.
Mm.
Obviously, what you're doing every like most nights now, it's
Mm.
incredible for other people to hear people talk about it and so on.
Mm. Obviously, yeah, touching on when we went back, I know that you wanted to mention how you actually got through it. Obviously, you did have help around you, but what was your focus, obviously, on things to help you get through it?
Yeah, but I'm in a bit of a different position to some people. As I had at the time, I had a family, obviously to obviously still look after and so on. It was I got it quite bad and so on, to the point where I couldn't work, and I didn't really want to leave the house or anything like that. So I was having counselling 3 times a week,
Mm.
and the guy who I was seeing, a guy called Cliff, said to me one day, "Go and get a hobby," and um. And I was like, well, "What do you mean get a hobby? I've played sport all my life. That is a hobby." And he said, "Well, go and do something, paint." And I was like, "What do you mean paint?" And then we got onto the subject of getting a camera, buying a camera. And literally from 2 years ago of suffering mental health and like getting real low points of depression to buying a camera from just something to do. Just I live by the seafront in Southend.
Mm.
Bought a camera. I used to just roam the streets taking pictures, and it massively helped because like it got me out of the house, and two, it gave me something to focus on. So it's and from there, it's like we've touched on it. It's given me opportunity to not only like be a photographer at an international soccer tournament like we was at, and but
Mm.
obviously I've done FA Cup finals, I've done like Premier League games.
Mm.
It's incredible to get that opportunity from something which people see as such a negative. It gave me another option, and is now a revenue stream for me. It's an income.
Mm. Yeah, we touched on it with a few people, but it only come recently to me as well. But do you feel there's a lack of funding or a lack of experience with so-called mental health experts that we struggle with within maybe the industry of education or in football clubs in general?
Um, I think it's a tough question because if you would have said this 4, 5, 6 years ago, you'd 100% agree and say, yeah, it's not spoken about. There's not enough funding to help.
Mm.
But there's so much now going on. Don't get me wrong, there's not enough, but there is enough people. There's different charities and so on. I think you spoke to a guy the other week. Um, what are doing so much to help people, not only just in within football, which obviously we're involved in, but in life really. It's the NHS obviously seen it now as a bit of an avenue they need to address. And yeah, I don't think there's enough, but I think we're in a much better position now than we was a year, 2, 3, 4 years time
Mm.
like ago.
Yeah, obviously touching on the last things. What do you feel in general that we can all basically do to maybe help people around us who are in struggles? Obviously, we touched on it a little bit, but like, how do you think we can help more? Like, being there for people and talking more, yeah, it is a good way. But what can we do after that? After we've done that initial talk, how do you feel we can do it better?
I just think people have got to be interested in it. It's such a broad spectrum of issues and obviously situations. So, and I think people, whether they suffer from mental health or they don't, should pay an interest in mental health. Like I mean, like very lucky that a lot of my friends and family, although didn't know nothing about mental health before, obviously I had some issues and stuff. They then got into understand it a little bit more, and I think we all need to do that. I
Mm.
think I don't necessarily go to the point where it needs to be taught in schools, but it definitely needs to be spoken about. Is I've got young children, and they wouldn't have a clue about what mental health is, and I'm a strong believer that should be spoken about in schools.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with that comment, that it's okay going to maybe college and everything like that, and uni and everything, and getting the
Yeah,
certificates and the education and everything like that. But sometimes it's about knowing them experiences yourself. You know what I mean, and passing them experiences on.
yeah,
And I feel sometimes we get like logged up with, oh, well, he's got this education or he's got this qualification,
yeah.
whereas sometimes it's just the life skills what maybe can help,
Just listening
or
to
going
it as
through
well.
it.
You just need someone to listen sometimes as well, and it's like, and obviously, like we've spoken about, and you talk about a lot. It's so hard to talk about this thing, what we all call mental health, and this issue, what we call mental health, because it is an
Mm.
issue. But people need to understand how to listen. Obviously, it's not how to deal with it; it's how they can listen. And because most of all, that's all we need sometimes is if we do want to talk about anything like that, you just need someone to be there. You don't need help. You don't need them to come up with answers because most of the time there is no answers.
Mm.
You literally just need someone to listen. I just think the more we talk about it, and the more we be nice, and the more we be kind, and the more things like this what we do, and we air some of our concerns about it, is it's only going to get better. I can't see mental health getting worse. Obviously, what we're in at the moment with the pandemic, it's not going to help, and you're seeing it on the news a lot that there is people what are committing suicide and losing a battle, but it's only going to get better from here. But post pandemic, with people being nice to each other, hopefully.
A question what was thrown about a little bit, because of a couple of people saying it, and I agree with it to a certain degree. Do you feel the word mental health is thrown about a bit too much from like people thinking they have got it, or they just use it for an excuse to a certain degree?
I agree with that a little bit. Yeah, but it's hard. If you don't talk to the right people, or you don't get the right help, how do you know if you've got a mental health like
Mm.
problem or issue? So it's yes, I agree that it's this stigma of mental health, and I can't do this because I've got mental health issues. It's banded around too much,
Mm.
and don't get me wrong, it's frustrating. I went through 2 months of not leaving my house because of it. So
Mm.
and then you've got people out there saying, "Oh, I'm depressed." But are you? So there's a big question of talking about it, but it's a big question of understanding it, and people knowing whether they've got these issues or most of all how to deal with these issues. So yeah, I agree. I think it is banded around too much, but I'd rather it being banded around too much and people sort of talking about it and then not talking about it at all.
Yeah, no, 100%. On that, obviously, last question. What are your overall thoughts are obviously on mental health, and also um, just general, your general thoughts going forward, and how we can help, we feel.
My biggest thing is making sure we're helping each other, and it's like we said, we've touched on the last 10 minutes. It's all good acknowledging these issues, but it's how you deal with them. But most of all, it's not how you deal with them; it's how the people around you deal with them. So for the more we talk about it, the more people are nice, the more people are kind, the more things people are listening to. I listen to a lot of podcasts on mental health and how to deal with situations. The more people do that, but it's being honest and making sure people around you know that you're doing that rather than it being a secret. And that was a big thing of mine is I battled it for 6 months before I realised I had it because I just wouldn't talk about it,
Mm.
and I didn't understand how to talk about it. So then, what I'd love to see more people talk about it. I'd love to talk about it more. I'd love to see it all the time, but it's just whether people do talk about it, and that's the biggest thing is having like people like yourself who are quite open to come out of it, and myself
Mm.
obviously, and who are quite open to come out and talk about it. Like like we've had conversations before and so on, which we strike up conversations with people you would never strike up conversations with about it,
Mm-hmm.
and we just need to be honest and broaden our wings and say to people that it's okay. Like, and it's so easy to sit here and say to people, oh yeah, it's okay. You've got mental health issues or so on. It's okay, but that's the hardest thing to understand. So the more we understand and the more we talk and more we listen, the better it's going to get.
100%. Tom, who was on last week, who was a great guest, obviously last week, he just turned around and said, "You're a great guest." So I agree with that.
I appreciate that.
Passing on your experiences and your thoughts, obviously, on mental health. But keep safe, Paul. We'll catch up soon, and
Yeah,
thank you
cheers,
very much
Jamie.
for coming on, mate.
No worries, mate. Take care. Keep doing what you're doing, mate.
Cheers. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, Jamie.
Bye. So that was Paul Rafferty sharing his experiences on mental health and going through it himself. As I said to you, anyone in here, please ask some questions as well, because it seems like most of the time I'm asking the same questions. As I said to everyone, I'm not 100% a professional. I'm not a professional on it. I'm just here to let people have a voice and talk about it themselves as well. And also, obviously, the experiences I've gone through as well, if I can pass on some things or help others, that's why I'm here. But yeah, if you've got any questions, please ask them. Let me get on the second guest. Here he is. You all right?
Hello, Jay. You all right, mate?
Yeah, not bad. You good?
I'm good. I'm good.
You're good. Yeah, not bad. So for the ones what don't know you, let them know who you are, what you do, and obviously how we met.
Yeah, so I'm Rob Curtis. I'm a London black taxi driver, and I met Jamie probably 5, 6 years ago through Step 5 football. We was doing a bit of coaching for Dean Harrison when I was at Fisher, and yeah, I got to know Jamie. Been in touch with him here and there ever since through Saturday football. So yeah.
Tom saying take the hat off.
Huh?
Tom said, you said take the hat off.
Tom can go fuck himself.
Is that the quarantine haircut? Yeah, you ain't had one.
Mate, do you want me to take off?
Go ahead, show us.
I've
Show
got a
us.
strong hairline.
Yeah,
Serious hairline.
there we go. Look at that.
Fresh shaper.
But yeah, no. So he's laughing anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Obviously, yeah, we've been trying to get you on for a couple of weeks. Obviously, I had some guests lined up, obviously, or before you messaged me and said, "Look, I want to come on. I want to have a chat," and that. So obviously, yeah, pass on some of your experiences. We don't want to go fully into it because. For the ones who are obviously in here, Rob's going to come on in a couple of weeks on a Thursday and talk about it more on a one-to-one basis and on the special. So he'll touch on it a bit tonight, but going forward he'll be on in a couple of weeks. So make sure obviously you tune in when he's on one-to-one. But yeah, I'll let you have a little chat first, and then we'll ask a couple of questions, and then we'll go from there.
No worries, mate. What do you want me to touch on? Just in general, yeah?
Yeah, just in general, obviously mental health, what it's maybe been in your life or around you as friends, you know what I mean, or anything like that.
Yeah, cool. No, it's probably been a big part of my life, maybe a bit more than others. I mean, that might sound a bit strange to say, but yeah, I've grown up probably in a family that's probably suffered with it quite a lot. It runs in the family, if I'm honest. So I've seen other people struggle with it for a number of years. Then probably not long before I met you, actually, Jay, things went on, and I started suffering with it myself, which we'll touch in detail, obviously, at a later date.
Yeah.
But and then I bottled that up for probably another 4 or 5 years, mate, and just had to get on with it. You know, that's the way I looked at it. Although I'm not necessarily old, I had an old school mentality with it, as in, well, Rob, you just got to get on with it. You're a grown man now. Do you know what I mean? So you bottle it up, like many people do, and still do.
Yeah, a lot of the people we spoke to, I think, especially in our generation, maybe of football. You know what I mean? When we was growing up, and when I spoken to like Marlon Patterson, and I spoke to Owen Price and a few others like who's been
Yeah,
around the game like us. You know what I mean? And that
yeah, they're a
they
bit
turned
older
around.
than me.
Yeah, we're a little bit older than you, but around the same generation, sort of. You know what I mean? But they've basically saying it's hard to open up in a dressing room because of the stigma behind it. Do you feel that
Yeah,
is the case?
yeah, I get that. I think that's more people assume it's harder. I
Mm,
actually, which I'll touch on you again at a later date, Jay, I
mm,
actually, it came from me opening up in the changing room,
mm,
causing me to go and do something about it because it got
mm,
to a point. I think he might be on the call actually. It happened, it kind of came to a head for me when I was actually playing a game. And I don't know if Joe Ford might be on this call, but
Let me have a look.
we were playing against the other year when I was at Ifnville, we were playing against Sporting Club Thamesmead at home, and I
Yeah.
think it was a Tuesday night game. And I kind of just we started the game with about 10 minutes in. I made a couple of bad passes, you know what I mean? And usually you get over it a couple of minutes later.
Mm,
I couldn't seem to get out of this rut, and I kind of froze. Like
yeah.
I just froze completely.
Mm,
And George Jones, Owen's son, actually, he said to me, "Rob, are you all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'll be all right in a minute. Just let me get my head back."
mm,
And then it carried on. I couldn't. I just froze inside, mate. And
yeah.
even one of their players turned around to me and went, "Mate, are you okay?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then I turned around a couple of minutes later. I actually turned around and went, Owen, I've got to come off, mate. Like,
Mm,
I'm not all right.
yeah.
And I was embarrassed. It was embarrassing. I
Mm,
actually turned around to Owen the next day and said, "I've got to take a few weeks out." And I
mm,
went and got counselling.
mm,
And it wasn't because of football, it
mm,
was because of other things, but it came to a head at football, you know.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so then I had to have a serious chat with the boys afterwards once I sorted my head out
Yeah.
and explained to them what had gone on. And we called a meeting, and the boys in the team will know about it. And they, to be fair, they kept it quite confidential. They didn't go around talking about it.
Mm,
And they all come up to me and said, "Rob, like, why don't you just say something before? Like, we're all
mm,
behind you, or your mate. Do you know what I mean? We're
yeah.
your teammate. Like, you're
Mm,
like family." And not one person took the liberties, took the piss.
mm,
It was really surprising actually. I was expecting a bit of banter for it, you know,
yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Of course.
I kind of wanted a bit of banter to lighten the mood about it. But everyone
Mm-hmm.
was good as gold, mate. And
Mm-hmm.
I think nowadays, men especially, because there's been a big thing about men's mental health.
Mm.
You know what I mean? We're not
100%.
stuck with it, by the way.
Yeah.
But there's been a big thing, and I think my generation, I'm 27 now, and my generation is probably more open to it than the generation before me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the younger generation is more open to it, probably too much in the sense that it's become an excuse for some people, like you
Yeah.
touched on with Paul.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a bit of my experience with it lately, and kind of how it came to a head for me.
So Paul's just obviously he's just been on and that. He just asked Rob, would you have felt better if the boys had a little banter with about it?
No, do you know what? I guess it's a defence mechanism banter sometimes, isn't it, with us in the
Mm,
changing room? We kind of, so I'm kind of, inside, I'm glad they kind of understood.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? If I'm being totally honest, I'm glad they understood. Because you don't, they might have took the mick and I'd laugh it off, but then, because like, I was probably still a bit volatile at the time, I'd probably
yeah.
go home and think, was he being serious earlier? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Even though they weren't. But no, they were good as gold.
Mm,
They had a bit of banter. They had a bit of banter about it. You know, that's
mm.
part of the changing room. That shouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah. Obviously, everything going on at the moment. Yeah. Do you feel obviously it's going to come more to light once obviously the lockdown's done and everything like that? Do you feel the government may put more funding into it, or will put it in more
Um,
light, or do you feel it should be that they try to help more with the funding and
yeah,
everything like that?
more needs to be done for funding it in terms of when it comes to serious mental health issues. You know, I
Mm,
mean, someone going to the doctors for antidepressants because they've had a bad week is a bit of a piss take as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing being a bit down at times, which we all get,
Mm,
and having a bad week or so, and there's another thing having an actual serious mental health issue. My brother's got actual bipolar. He was diagnosed just over 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And in terms of help and funding, there's been help there, but there needed to be more at the time, because we're not experts. We weren't, as a family, we weren't experts in dealing with it. You do need the experts there, and although there's no one size fits all for everyone, there does need to be more in terms of funding and behind the scenes work, in terms of support for people with mental health issues.
Do you feel it's got to be the right experience or the right education? Like, as I touched on with Paul, like, it's all good and well going to uni or college or wherever, and studying this for 3-4 years. I'm not saying that. Look, it's great. Like, you've put your life into it, obviously, to study it. I'm not knocking that. But for me, I feel like it should be sometimes that you have somebody as well put a light on it of a life skill. So you've been through it, maybe, you come out the other side, or like myself, obviously, or yourself, you've been around it. We're not going to say we know 100%, but at least we've been around it. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Do you feel that should be put in place a little bit more as well?
Yes, 100%. I mean, it's one, like you said with Paul, it's one thing having a qualification. It's another thing actually understanding the actual topic and the subject and how people are feeling. If you haven't experienced certain things, you can't help someone on it. It's that simple. You can give people advice and maybe a structure to follow, or little tips in terms of making yourself feel better for the time being. But in terms of actually understanding people, you need to be able to empathise with people when it comes to mental health. What you get a lot is of sympathy when it comes to mental health and not empathy. Where people get that wrong. I think that's wrong. You need to be able, if you can't empathise with people because you can't understand them, because you might not have that life experience, let's be honest, then that's not going to help, So you've got to be able to empathise with someone. I ended up going privately, just paying. It was £40 an hour once a week with a woman in Bromley, and it worked wonders for me. It worked absolute wonders, and everyone noticed it after. Football noticed it. I wasn't reacting. I wasn't booting people up in the air like I was. People at home noticed it. My family, everyone just said, "Rob, you're like a different person." And
I think
having the right help, not necessarily.
That's what I was going to say. The right help is different for everyone. Obviously, we know that and we understand that. So, as you say, going to see somebody helps you. That might not help somebody else. We're not saying that. We're just passing on the experience, what we feel. I touched on it with I'll ask this question first before going to my one. From Lee Stubbs, Rob, do you think the unity and camaraderie of a football squad can actually work as a positive for someone suffering from mental health, as in it's a strong network to gain support?
100%. 100%. I tell you what, when the boys turned around and put their arm around me after I spoke to them and opened up to them about it, it made me feel 10 times taller inside, mate. I've got to be honest, because you realise you're not on your own. Do you know what I mean? Because when you suffer with mental health, you inside you feel lonely. It's a lonely feeling in your head, inside you. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't understand that. And when you finally come out the other side and realise you're not on your own, and people do understand you and what you've gone through or have felt the same, it's a good feeling. And when the boys turn around to you and go, you know what I mean? When you know your team's on your side, mate, as you know in football, there's no feeling like it.
Yeah.
There's no feeling like it. Do you know what I mean? It's massive. It's so important in the training room. So important.
Yeah. Touching on, obviously, on that question and what you were saying before, the right help and the right support around you. From my experience, and I've touched on this again, I didn't think it was going to be the same right. No, what is it? I didn't think it was going to be the people what was closest to me and actually understood me. Was going to be the right help, but it ended up not being. It ended up being people I knew through football, but
Yeah.
didn't know on a personal level until obviously I started interacting with them more through the England Sixes when they come to the trials, and then obviously got in the training squad, and then from that it built a good relationship that
Yeah.
on the pitch and off the pitch, that I could actually speak to them more about my issues, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
what I was struggling with. Do you feel you've got to trust the right people or know it's the right people to speak to about that issues?
Yeah, I think obviously, yeah, you need to trust them, but sometimes, like you said, Jay, not necessarily the closest people. What I found, the people that were closest to me, they were good at being honest with me, in this, which I think helped because it made me wake up. People turn around to me when people closest to me turn around to me and went, Rob, you need to sort yourself out. It's like you need to get your head straight. How you do it's up to you, but you've got to look at yourself and get your head on. And I thought, yeah, made me realise, yeah, I know that. Like, obviously, I know that at the minute. How do I do that? And then getting an outside perspective helped. So,
Yeah.
so because people that with an outside perspective, they're not looking at you as as their son or their brother or their boyfriend, or do you know what I mean? They're just looking at you as another person that they barely know. So you can use that kind of to get to know people, and if you understand, if when you get to know other people, if you try and listen to them, you'll get a perspective of their story. Everyone's got a story, so sometimes it takes an outside person, someone from the outside, yeah, to kind of help you fix up. Basically, you need that outside perspective. I believe you can't just be wrapped around people close. Sometimes they'll tell you what makes you feel better, and sometimes they'll just be a bit too blunt and go, "Well, you've got to sort yourself out, mate. You can't do it yourself." You know what I mean?
So you touched on it. Obviously, you knew you had to go and get help, but what stopped you in the first place, you feel?
Yeah, the old school mentality, isn't it? I mean, I grew up in a fam. I've got an Irish family, so old school Irish family. Now I've seen people in my family suffer with mental health and not talk about it for years.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I've done at first. Because I look at my dad, and I know he's probably suffered at times. I've seen him suffer, but I've seen him suck it up and get on with life
Yeah.
and come out the other side of it doing it that way. But that's a different generation. You know, I had to go and talk about it, and I was just getting worse and worse. And it was everything was crumbling around me because of it. I've got to be honest.
All right. Well, we don't want to go into it too much.
No,
So because obviously we want to do it on one-to-one and open it up a little bit more. You know what I mean? So, last
yeah, no,
question.
that's
What do you feel overall people can do to help themselves, help others, and what are your overall thoughts on mental health? Hello? Can you hear me? Let me come off. I'll get you back on, Rob. Just cutting off. Wait for Rob to come back on. Just finish off the last chat with him. As I say, everyone, for the remaining two guests, if you've got any questions, please, put them in and we get them answered. If you've got any questions for myself as well, please put them in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come offline now. Everyone come back in, obviously, and we'll finish off our chat with Rob and then get the other two guests on. Just see you in 2 minutes. Oh, actually, Rob's here. Sorry, we'll get him on now. Yeah, no, all good, Rob.
Sorry.
The last question. What I was saying to you. No, it's all right. Don't worry, mate. Last question. I was saying, how do you feel people can help? You can help yourself, and what do you feel? Your overall thoughts on mental health and how people can help going forward.
Yeah, go decide what's best for you, mate. Just go, and if you feel you need to go and talk to someone else, go and talk to them. If you feel you need to read some self-help books, read some self-help books. Try a few different things and see what works for you. Although I would highly recommend, if you are in a hole, go and talk to someone with an outside perspective. I've got to be honest. I definitely advise that.
No. All right. Well, Rob, I'll put the date out, obviously, and I'll let you know, obviously, when we're coming on a Thursday. I think it's in a couple of weeks' time anyway. But yeah, and we'll touch on it more. I'm sure the story will be worth watching for everyone. And I'll catch you. Obviously, keep safe till then, and I'll speak to you soon, mate.
Thanks, Jay. Look after yourself, mate.
Yeah, you too, mate. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, mate. Bye,
Bye.
mate.
So that's Rob Curtis, as we said. Yeah, no, he's going to touch on his story more in a one-to-one basis on a special in a couple of weeks' time on a Thursday. Make sure, obviously, you tune in and hear Rob's experiences and story. Yeah, again, as I keep on saying, anyone who's got questions, please ask them. Let me go on to our third guest. Here he is.
What's going on?
You ain't had a haircut, have you?
Not allowed to, mate.
Oh, mate.
Not allowed to.
No, true point. But still, you know what I mean?
It's not as easy as your haircut anyway.
Well, you could have at least tidied it up a little bit.
There you go. I'll do that for you.
You got your top in the background, so
Yeah.
So as I say to everyone, introduce yourself for people who don't know you and how we met, obviously.
Yeah, so Arjun Jung, or some of you may call me AJ on the pitch and that. Met through five-a-side. Just playing fives, street football. That's where I think me and you met, didn't we, Lego?
Pretty much, yeah. Through five-a-side.
3-4 years ago, I'd say.
Yeah, roughly about that now.
About 3-4 years ago, and then just kept in contact ever since. Shared the pitch a few times as well.
Yep.
And yeah, man, just kept in contact since then.
Yep.
And obviously now I play for England six-a-side.
Yep.
And went to the World Cup in October, and then obviously, yeah, now in this amazing lockdown period.
Yeah, well, yeah. Let's touch on lockdown first of all. Obviously, it's going to be a struggle for everyone, mentally and physically. But how do you feel people can get through this lockdown period if they're struggling mentally?
Yeah, it's crazy because I live in a house where out of the 6 of us who live in here, 3 of us are essential workers. So kind of getting a mixed view of, getting the whole round view of what it's like, in terms of, for me, I'm going into school on a rota basis because we've got kids of essential workers. And in the last few weeks, we've also got EHCP kids as well, which are emergency healthcare plan kids.
Yeah, that's the same. I work in an SEN school, so a lot of them have been in as well.
Exactly. So yeah, for me, it's been different to most people's experience because I've still been going out, going into school and stuff. The hardest part I've found about it is not being able to see my grandma, and she's just been like staple part of my life growing up and that.
Yeah,
been basically my mum growing up, so that's been hard, and it's been hard for the rest of the family as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the general person, it's just I feel that the normal advice anyone would give is to basically try and get yourself doing stuff, which is why the government has been saying, as much as we have to lock down, we'll give you a certain amount of time of exercise, because they know that whether an hour is enough or not, people need to take it into their own hands to do stuff. If you're fortunate enough to have a garden, get out in that garden. We've been blessed with really good weather. That's one thing that we can say that's been good from it, is that even though it's been locked down, we've had probably like 3 days of rain in this whole time.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So people should be outside doing stuff, using this time to spend with their kids, spend with family, and just making the most of some of the terrible things that are happening to people's lives, which are, some of them can't pay rent. Some people, are selling family houses because they need to make money up that they haven't got. You know, my auntie and uncle, who I both would live with, are lawyers, and to this day, like since lockdown started, they're dealing with like more divorces. They're dealing with more house cases that are up for sale and stuff because people don't have the money. So this period alone is massive for what you're trying to do, which is talk about mental health, because as a result of this period, mental health alone is probably going to experience a spike because of people being in situations which they've never been in or they don't know how to deal with.
Yeah. A lot of people talk about mental health. Do you feel it's the same, very similar question to what obviously I ask everyone, and everyone has different opinions. So everyone has different views on it as well. So that's fine. But do you feel mental health is thrown about a bit too much?
I think, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's been thrown about too much, because at the end of the day, we're having this conversation right now because mental health has not been thrown around enough. That's why you're doing what you're doing, right? Because mental health hasn't been thrown around enough for people to have recovered from it or deal with it, or not even have experienced the severity of their problems in the first place. So if anything, no, I don't think it's been thrown around enough, because I don't think it has been thrown around too much.
All
And
right,
if I change,
if I change the wording, do you think it's used too much with people what may use it for other means? Not that they're actually struggling with it, but they use it for other means. So it's easy for them to say it because it's been in the limelight a little bit more often than what it has been over the last few years.
you know what, I understand what you're saying. I guess it's similar to like someone who's like a hypochondriac, and
Yeah, like that.
like if they've fallen over, they'll cry that they've broken their arm when they haven't broken their arm. But at the end of the day, you're going to get that with every kind of health. You're going to get people who are, say, exaggerate if they've been emotionally hurt. They can exaggerate if they've been physically hurt. Exaggerate if they've been mentally hurt. I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is more what you're trying to achieve, which is, can we get more people to talk about it from a younger age if there's something wrong?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think we need to look too much at people who are oversaying these things. I think the problem is people who aren't saying it when they have got problems or before they could have a problem.
Okay. Obviously, just touching on something, obviously, from the football side of it. Paul Rafferty, who's obviously been on earlier on, he was at the World Cup. He's saying, AJ, if you could relive one moment from the World Cup, what would it be?
Definitely wouldn't be that Uruguay game, I can tell you that much.
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
I can tell you mine.
Go on, tell me yours and I'll think of mine.
The Greece game. If we didn't let in every single goal when we was down to 5 men, we would have won the game.
Yeah, that would have been a nice thing. You know what? That's gonna sound as cliche as it's gonna sound, but I think just scoring in front of
packed house,
and in front of my family, yeah, it was massive. It was massive. I think just like growing up thinking that as much as I love football, am I going to get like an Indian family to be watching me play on a basis? Probably not. But for them to be able to see me score for my country, I think has to be the highlight. I think.
Yeah, Paul just said it got to be scoring. Yeah, so obviously, going back onto the subject, you're obviously, as you touched on, you work in a school, and that. Do you feel there's enough awareness or funding, etc., in schools for people to be able to speak about mental health better than what it was?
There's definitely enough funding, but I don't think. I think now we're getting to a point where more people are knowing about mental health, and hopefully that the funding can be used accordingly. Definitely think there is enough funding. So, for example, there's the Young Mental Health First Aid course. If you work at a school, and anyone who works at a school, anyone who helps run a school, governs a school, I definitely recommend that all the staff, if not as many of the staff as possible, can try and get on that course. I'm going to be doing that course straight away. So I've been researching it the last week, and that's a really big course for kind of just adults and TAs and teachers and coaches and head teachers at the school to get awareness of how to deal with early signs,
Yep.
and for them to be able to tackle those early signs, and also just be able to help children in general. You know, to just talk like like you're trying to say.
Yeah. We touched on this with I touched on it with Kevin George, who's obviously a massive with mental health. He wrote a book, Socademics, and everything like that. He goes into Premier League clubs and speaks about it, and that he spoke about the first aid mental health. He said, yeah, it's a good course, but he feels that you can go on it, but you need to broaden your horizons afterwards, because it's only a 2-day course, which
Safer.
which basically obviously does the basis and the small stuff of it. But he said if you want to know in depth, like he said, you need to go and get bigger qualifications and have more experience, because he doesn't feel that you should be basing your opinions just on a 2-day course, where
even,
and
even if,
that
and that's completely fine. I haven't done the course yet, so I don't know.
yeah
But even if the course like jogs the heads of 10 or 20 people within a school, then it's going to have that kind of trickle down effect where all the teachers are talking about it with each other in the staff room. You've got, opinions bouncing off each other. These chats that me and you are having right now
yeah
will have within themselves, and only a positive thing can come from that, right?
no,
Like,
yeah, of course,
whether the course or not is going to give any substantial material
yeah,
or
or value to it.
value, that's bonus if it does. But if it doesn't, then it'd just be amazing for more teachers and more staff conferences to have mental health as a chat, or even as a topic within
Yeah.
that. The dream is that mental health gets to a point where it's talked about in a training session like physical health, like before warm up, and you're doing, and everyone's saying, oh yeah, my hammies are tight, my quads are tight, my this. The norm is not to talk about your mental health, is it?
No, of course not. Obviously, from a football perspective, with you, do you feel you would be, speaking from yourself, do you feel you would be able to go into a dressing room and speak about if you were struggling with mental health with other people in a dressing room, or do you still feel, oh, there's a big stigma around football and a male perspective?
I think it's hard because there is a massive stigma attached to it, and it trickles down all the way from like academies. When you're in an academy, there's massive expectations, and those expectations in an academy are turning academy footballers into like lifestyle perfectionists.
Yeah.
And you've got to be this. There's this persona of you have to be like robot-like with no mistakes, and have a amazing support background behind you, and like pretend that everything's fine when you walk into the training ground, to make it feel like you're the one to pick me as a pro, because everything's a competition.
Yeah.
Like when you go into a non-league club for the first time, and this is why footballers on average have a higher rate of mental health than the average person, because when you walk into a non-league football team and you're on trial, no one's going to welcome you. No one's going to be like, oh, mate, come on, take my centre mid spot if you can.
Of course, yeah.
They're just not going to like treat you the same as they would treat their own players, or the players that they've already got in the squad. So the atmosphere is made to make you feel like you're by yourself, and you're not gonna. So no, the answer probably is no. Like you wouldn't feel comfortable unless
Yeah.
it's a club which you've been at for like 5-6 years, and the players are all the same. which
Yeah.
is very, very rare.
Yeah. I think obviously, yeah, Rob said it from a different perspective on the last call. He was around the same players, well, very similar players for, as you say, 2 or 3 years maybe, and he had the basis of he could trust going into them and speaking to them. So I feel obviously it's different experiences and different opinions, but from my point of view, and I've said it to you before, and I've spoken to other people, I think it's very hard to know who you can trust when the people what closest to you maybe turn out to not be the closest to you. You know what I mean? And that I've learned that a little bit over the last year, which the issue of certain people that they was closest to me and they ended up not being as close as what I thought they would be, and it didn't help me. You know what I mean? So I think it's hard sometimes for, especially a male perspective, or from my point of view, to know who to trust and who not to trust. Do you
Yeah,
think it is at times?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's, and obviously, as you know anyway, and as people have talked about, it's that male kind of I'm fine, I'm tough kind of persona, isn't it? That people are trying to portray all the time.
Mm,
When in fact, if you just talk about what you're going to talk about, and um, get certain things off your chest, and it won't build up.
mm.
You won't get to the point where everything's tackling you down. Who? What was the person's name who you're speaking to before?
Rob.
Rob. So I was listening to a bit of Rob as well, and what he was saying about his dad is just so true as well. Is that people, the role model, the male role models that most of us have in our lives
Mm,
are people who obviously are of the older generation, and they still got kind of that way of thinking, whereby, oh, if I've got a problem, I'll deal with it myself. You don't hear your dad say, I've got problems, I've got mental health problems, I've got this.
mm,
And so as a role model, we're gonna aim to be that same person, aren't we? When we grow
mm,
up, we
mm.
want to be like our dad. We want to be like our uncle who's never faced any problems. But
100%.
in
Yeah.
reality, we don't know the problems he's been facing behind behind closed doors.
Yeah. Um, Obviously, yeah. Last question. This is very similar to everyone's last question. What do you feel people can do to help others better? What do you feel in general, who they can speak to feel better? And obviously, once they have spoken to people, what do you feel they can do afterwards? What's the next step? And your overall thoughts, obviously, on mental health.
Well, as a coach perspective and a school perspective, I also kind of have started my own academy in my school, which I work at in the last year. And I think in the perspective of that, observation, whether it's your friends, whether it's your family, whether it's people you coach, I think observation for me is really high up there. If you see something from your friends that they're recently lower than they have been ever in the past, they're recently um, more aggressive than they have been in the past. You see physical signs that are worrying. Anything that you see
Mm,
that you think is a massive, massive red flag, sorry, and it's just there's something wrong with that.
mm,
Talk to them. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? That conversation. Don't just kind of let it slide and go, oh yeah, no, it's fine. Like he's a man. Like he'll be fine. He'll get over it himself. It's just like just have that chat with him. Just say, listen, I noticed this. Is everything all right, mate?
mm,
You know. I think we more and more of these conversations happen, which originally we think are just a little bit kind of unneeded or unnecessary or just
mm.
that person will be fine. I think the more these conversations happen, the more people themselves will come out to you and say, "Listen, I've got a problem here. I wanted to just run it by you." I think that's the dream.
Really cool. All right, AJ, I'll catch you up soon. Keep safe, mate, and hopefully this is all done, and then we can get back into training soon, mate.
Pleasure, man. Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
No worries. Bye.
Okay, that was AJ Arjun Judd. Thank you for coming on. Great explanation of how he sees mental health and some of the stuff what he has seen around, and how he feels people can look for it and how they can help. Got one more guest tonight. Yeah, he's inspirational, and I've said it on a lot of these chats. He's one of the main reasons pushing me forward to do these chats. So I'm going to come off the live because we're literally going to be an hour now. So I'll come off the live now and come back on. Everyone come back on, and I'll obviously ask questions to our last guest. So I'll see you in 2 minutes.